together there. Sorry about that. So today we have a guest speaker for our female head of household topic. This is Mrs. Sheila Cole. She's with First Bank. She is the VP, Community Mortgage Officer. Sheila joined First Bank in September 1997 and steadily progressed through various loan support and servicing roles, gaining extensive experience in back office operations across the bank. Today, she serves as a community mortgage outreach officer, where she focuses on engaging with the community and providing guidance on mortgage opportunities, supporting consumers and customers with their home ownership goals, and strengthening First Bank's local presence. Her skills are best presented in effective management, relationship building, communication, and critical thinking. Sheila holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Gardner-Webb University. She has also completed and received recognition for Accelerated Leadership Program, North Banking Association, and Advanced Loan Compliance. In her spare time, Sheila enjoys family time, sitting on the beach, helping in the community and church, traveling, golfing, riding motorcycles, and providing outreach in any capacity. These moments allow her to disconnect from the world, from all problems, and be fully present to enjoy what makes her happy. So her favorite quotes are never beg for a seat at the table when you can build your own, and I am not raised to ask for permission to lead. So thank you again, Sheila, for being here, and we'll turn the presentation over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that warm introduction. And good morning. Well, good afternoon, 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to have the opportunity to sit before you and present on today. When I was asked to do this workshop, it was really something near and dear to my heart because I was telling Kelly before we started, not only have I been, single and head of household, presently, I'm still single head of household. So this is something that resonates with me very well. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to try to get through this presentation. I'm struggling a little bit. I live in the country. I don't know if some of you are familiar with Pinehurst, Southern Pines area, but I live far out in the country and we have all these pine trees. So the pollen is killing me on today and I'm having to talk through my nose. So you all just bear with me and stop me at any time if you need me to repeat anything or if you don't understand what I'm saying. So um, this month, March, I don't know how many sport fans we have in the on this call, but I do like basketball, and this is March Madness, and I said, what better way from March Madness to financial victories? It's time for us females to slam dunk our budgeting game. So, we're just gonna have some fun with it today and just roll with it. And by the way, I do like basketball, but I am an avid football fan. So, and I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Oh,
Um,
Cowboys.
yeah, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. So, on today, we're going to take this hour and I try to, get through the presentation as quickly and thorough as possible so we can open up at the very end. If we have time for some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer some questions. But, just thinking, and when I was preparing this presentation, I was like, you know what, you know, as a single head of household, sometimes we just get worn down and just aggravated from just having to live from paycheck to paycheck, right? So what type of strategies, real time, real life strategies have I gone through and that I can share with this group instead of just giving you textbook material. I want to speak from the heart and from experience. And I'll tell you a little bit about my background growing up. So I came from a family where I had my mother and my father. So I had both parents in the house. And my father, he had a very good job, made very good money. But for some reason, we struggled. We struggled a lot. And I mean, you think about it, 30, 40 years ago, times were not nowhere near as hard as they are now. And we owned our home and we had multiple vehicles, but I was like, what is the problem? Why are we struggling, so bad? And, as a kid, you don't see it. You just, you're like, okay, well, we can't do the things, some of the other kids in the community are doing. Oh, well. So you're just going about your business. You play, you're going about your business. You don't think no more about it. So fast forward, once I got to, I think maybe eighth, ninth grade, my dad took very ill. So the job he had been on for 30 some years, I want to say 38 years, he got ill. So he had to, he was forced to retire. So back in those days, a lot of your factories, they had what they call profit sharing. Profit sharing plans, which were like the same as pension plans of that nature. So I was like, well, okay, we're going to get a break now. My dad is forced to retire. He's got like 38 years of profit sharing. We getting ready to be rich. That was my mindset. We are getting ready to be rich. We're going to do everything that we want to do. We're going to take vacations. We're going to get another new car. And, we're just, those struggling days are going to be long far and behind us. Well, that wasn't the case. So when it was time for him to, take possession of his profit sharing, by this time we had bills on top of bills on top of bills, and a lot of them like hospital medical bills of that nature. So what should have been a moment to kind of like sit back and reflect. Yeah, he was in bad health, but this should have and could have been the opportunity for us like to take a breather and say, you know what, Dad, come on home. You don't have to work. We don't have to worry about finances anymore. But that wasn't the case. We were even further away from where we should have been, or from goals that we should have set a while back. So I'm saying that to say this, because my parents had no financial goals, no financial planning, no budget. We were in worse shape than we were with him, just starting his job 30 some years ago. It was just the same as being unemployed because it took all of that money to try to catch up from where we had, slacking off and where everything was just like snowballing on top of each other and bills and it got rough. It got really rough. And my mother was a domestic worker, so she wasn't bringing in a lot of money. She didn't have a high school education. She didn't have a anything to fall back on. So it was just house cleaning. So, but we got through those days and we got through those moments. So that was really that set the precedence of, hey, what can I do different? How am I going to make this work for my family one day? Well, not knowing that, go through 4 years of high school, plans to go to college. After I finished high school, a few months, I got pregnant. So here I am now. I'm like, okay. So now I'm forced to make some changes. I'm single. I'm going to eventually have to find a place to live. I'm going to be head of household. How am I going to do this? So that's when my survival mode kicked in. And I was like, okay, I see what happened to mom and dad. I don't want that to be me. I don't want to be one of those statistics where, we just don't have much. It's just not plentiful. So I said, well, first thing I have to do, I already have a job. I'm already working. I need to find a place to stay for me and my daughter. So I paid rent for a while. And then fortunately, I was able to buy my first home. Well, my first home was a mobile home, but still, that was my home, right? And I was like, okay, I'm not getting child support and I'm not getting any kind of assistance because every little bit that you made, they said your income was too much. So I was like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna have to do. I got to start some serious budgeting, and we got to make this thing work because it's only the two of us. My parents are older now, and their health is not good. So I have to do what I have to do for my head, my household. So let me switch off right quick and let me share my screen. Kelly, am I able to share my screen?
All right, bear with me.
Okay.
Sheila, do you see share up at in the top of your screen or anything? You should be able to share.
I do. I see share.
Yes, if she'll do share and then you'll be able to share either a tab or your screen.
Got it. Okay. Can you all see that for March
Yes.
Madness? Okay, great. Let me do this. There we go. So we'll turn it into a shareable, the share view. Yeah, so getting back to our budget and game plan. So, yeah, just giving you just a little history on my background and me coming up, as a single parent. So I'm at the point now where I left off on my story where I got to make something happen because I want a better life and I don't want to have to struggle. I don't want the wearations of having to live from paycheck to paycheck and just struggle, the way my parents did. So just to fast forward a little bit, in this workshop, we're gonna talk through and we're gonna walk through some things and that were applied in my situation. So in this workshop, we're gonna explore some of the importance of creating and maintaining the budget, and we'll look at examining the difference between our wants and needs, which is very critical in the way you budget and how successful your budget would turn out to be, and how we can set goals for spending, savings, and debt repayment. So we're not using Sheila in this presentation. Actually, we're going to talk about Miss Marta. So Miss Marta is same situation. Miss Marta is a single head of household, working like crazy. She's tired, she's overwhelmed, and she's ready for a change, right? So first, we're gonna look at income. So we know behind every successful budgeting plan, you always have to look at your income, what's coming in. First, it's also important to understand the difference between your incomes, your gross income versus your net income, in order to make a good financial plan. This is going to be this is going to be the big picture of all of your goals and what you want to achieve. B, make this budget. Our budget is going to be your action plan. It's your action plan to the financial plan that you have just created. How are you going to get there? How are you going to do this? It's not going to happen on its own. You got to put in a lot of work. C, have a savings. This amount, it doesn't have to be a large amount of money. It's just, rule of thumb, the savings is usually about 20% of your income. It doesn't always have to be that. Sometimes that's not feasible. In today's economy, it's really hard. It's hard to save, anything and not just be transparent when I do my workshops. Some paychecks, you might be able to, set aside $20. Some paychecks, you might not be able to set aside anything. But just being consistent on making the effort to always set aside something for savings. D, live within your means. This is so important. So important. And this is where you recognize your needs versus your wants. Because a lot of things we don't need. We just want it. And there's nothing wrong with wanting. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. But you just have to recognize when it's just not, when it doesn't make sense. In my mind, everything has to make sense. You gotta make it make sense, right? So just being able to recognize, is it something that I really want or really need? And a lot of times, I have to be honest, I'll tell you about me. A lot of times it's what I want, which is, makes it that much easier for me to say, hey, nope, I'm saving this money because I don't need it. E, reducing debt. Most of our debt as a single head of household, credit card debt. You know why? Because we don't have a savings or we won't have that cushion there that we can get things that we need to get. So we have to resort back to a credit card because let me tell you, credit cards are easy to get, but they are hard to get out of. So that's one of the things right there. Those are some of the things right there that are very crucial to helping get ahead in today's society. All right, we'll go back to talking about income. So gross versus net income and what's the difference? Your gross income is the amount of money you earn before anything's taken out. Your taxes, your 401k, and insurance, different benefits of that nature. So um, sometimes we get a little caught up on making decisions based on our gross income. Take, for instance, like purchasing a home or a car or big purchases of that nature. They rely on your gross income. That doesn't always mean that that's the sensible decision, right? Because guess what? That gross income, that's not what you bring at home. So that's money unseen, untouched, that's gone. It's gone, but it's working for you behind the scenes. That's a good way to look at it. So your net income, of course, that's all the money that you're bringing home after taxes. So what we're going to budget off of, we always have to look at what we have, what's available to us. Two things you don't do. You don't spend on what you had or what you're expecting. You always spend on what you have available at the moment. Okay? So budgeting is the process of creating a plan to spend your money. Everybody's budget can look different, right? Everybody's needs and wants are different. And what worked for me may not work for you, but it's just important just to make sure that you have some type of budget, where you can resort back to. Because like I said, you have to tailor it to whatever your needs are. My needs may be totally different from your needs and wants as well. What a want may be for me may be essential or may be a need for you. So it just all depends on the person and the situation. So how can a budget help me? First of all, live within our means. That means we're going to align spending with our income. And that's going to ensure that we spend less than what you earn, right? Because what happens when we start spending more than what we have? We're in the red. We're operating in the red, right? So that means that we're digging ourselves deeper down in debt. So how do you do that? Track your expenses. Distinguish between your needs and your wants. And our wants, like I said earlier, they can get us in a lot of trouble and cause us to overspend and rely heavily on credit cards. That's your major debt of the American citizen, credit cards. Easy to get in, hard to get out of, really high interest rates, right? And typically, when I used to have credit cards, and there's nothing wrong with having credit cards. Let's just clear that. There's nothing wrong with having credit cards. And to be honest, everyone needs a major credit card to some extent, right? Because nowadays you can't do anything. Some places won't even take a debit card. They want that credit card. So I would never get up here and deter anyone from having a credit card. But don't have too many credit cards and just stay in control. You are the controller. You have to be a good steward of your money and your finances. So just stay in control of your credit cards. Um, Budgeting helps you pay down debt. So by identifying wasteful spending and reallocating those funds towards your debt payments. So the quicker you pay down or you pay off debt, you're saving money. Not only money that you had coming out of your accounts to pay off these debts, but interest. And when we're making, sometimes you find yourself making like the minimum payments on debts, on your credit cards or whatever it is. Um, but that's just prolonging time, and you're going to end up paying so much money towards interest on these credit cards. So, just taking that step, just taking that leap of faith and just getting those credit cards in check, that's a huge, huge um step on creating a good budget plan. Um, I'm sorry. Does anyone have anything to add?
Anybody have any questions or anything for Sheila at this point? Anything?
I think someone is unmuted. Okay. All right. If not, we'll just go right on. So we talked about wants versus needs, right? So again, I always say that can look different just according to the situation. So, just taking a quick look at this demonstration that we have on the screen. So, we talk about coffee, groceries, these phone bills, insurance, rent, utilities, salon, right? So it's not all the time that these needs are wants or vice versa. So, just quickly, just take a minute and go through these. And when we flip to the next page, we'll go through and we'll see a better demonstration of the wants versus the needs. So just take a quick minute and just go through them. And we're just going to see how many think that some are wants and how many think that some are needs. Okay. Okay, so we're going to flip on. So, cutting expenses, identifying what's a want versus a need. So, looks like Martha. First of all, Martha's bringing home $2,000 a month. So, Martha's going to have to cut it real close. And I tell you, these numbers are not based on today's economy, okay? Because $2,000 a month is someone's salary, but just look at like the cost of rent, $600, the cost of groceries alone, $200, where that used to be a monthly budget, in a household. You barely can get out of the store doing, weekly for $200 now. And just I don't think gas is on here, fuel. Well, it could go as transportation expenses. I put up to the gas station yesterday and I paid almost $5 a gallon. I think it was like 4.70 for a gallon of premium gas. So these numbers are not aligning with today's economy, but at least it's something that we can, discuss to get the bigger picture of, how to cut expenses and how to effectively budget. Okay. So if we look at Martha's spreadsheet, so she's been able to break it down where she identified, her wants. Okay, her coffee. Now, speaking for me, coffee is not a want for me. Coffee is a need. But what's not a need is me stopping by Starbucks and McDonald's every morning getting the coffee. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy my little coffee pods or buy my ground coffee at home, and I'm going to make my coffee at home every morning. So restaurants, entertainment, clothing, salon. So those are wants. I'm not saying that you cut these things out of your life or out of your budget, but you have to make sure that you know how to prioritize what is most important and what's not, because these are things right here. We can live without some of these things. So, your needs. Your needs, your a roof over your head is going to always be a need, right? Your rent, your mortgage, that's going to always be a necessity. Food, you got to have food to survive. So groceries always be a need, a necessity. Utilities, utilities always. You're not going to stay anywhere where you're not, you don't have to pay your utilities. So, and the thing about utilities, and this is one of the reasons why budgeting is really, really important, because I don't know about you all, but for me, my light bills, my electrical bill has gone crazy. So that is a variable, that's what you call a variable expense. You can say, well, on the average, my light bill is in March, my light bill is $100. Well, this year alone, I have been paying almost triple, and I am a single person in my home. So nothing has changed inside of my home except for the cost of me to run my lights. Don't understand why, but that's just the nature of it. And guess what? These companies know that we need it, so we have to pay it. So your utilities, car payment, if you have a car note, car insurance, another variable expense that has just quadrupled over the past year or two. House insurance, car insurance. Those are things that we have no control of over. So variable expenses again. Transportation expense, gas, no control. I just had to put a new set of tires on the car, and I was like, oh my God, I did not know. Let alone, wait a minute, let me back up. I just put a set of wipers on my car. No one told me that wipers had gone up as much as they are. And you're not getting two wipers in a pack anymore. Just FYI. Now you're having to buy two wipers because you have two different sizes, right? Just another way to make more money. But anyway, these are things that we have no control over. So we have to really make sure that we're able to recognize between what we need and what we want. So when situations come up like this, we have the funds to go purchase the things that we need, and we don't always have to resort back to a credit card. Health insurance, medical expenses, that exact same thing. I shared the story about me growing up, my dad having a decent job, made decent money, but the medical expenses, once they start rolling in, and once the medication starts rolling in, the medicine starts rolling in, even on insurance now, some of my medicine, one or two of my medicines are on a different tier now. That they a different tier than what they were on last year. So where I was paying $25 for a medicine like my inhaler that I have to have this time of the year, now it's gone up to $50. Well, guess what? I don't have no control over that. So I have to buy that inhaler for $50. So that's double the cost. Internet. To some people, the internet might be a want. For me, it's a need, it's a necessity. I have to have it. And I have to have it because I work remote. And without the internet, I'm not going to be able to do my job. So again, you have to determine, there's no black and white when it comes to budgeting or determining, your needs versus wants. It all depends on you and your situation. All right, how can I free up some funds? Well, let's talk about cutting some expenses. Paying off those high interest credit cards. For me, canceling a lot of subscriptions. What was it? Netflix, I think it was the Disney Channel, ESPN, and all that kind of stuff. You look and you're like, okay, $5.99 here, $7.99 here, $12.99 here. But guess what? It all adds up. It all adds up, and you find yourself every month paying almost as much as if you had the streaming premium, whatever that is. So it's just, you just have to just sit down and go through your expenses and say, what can we live without? And a lot of those I could, because for one, they were showing the exact same things. And a few years ago, I shared with you at the beginning of the presentation that I love NFL, I love football. But I was not about to be paying no $300 and $400 for the NFL network. So I knew right there that was definitely a want, and that we were not going to revisit. So, gym memberships, satellite radio, those two things as well, I was able to cut out my budget because the membership fees kept going up. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of room outside. You have this walking pad inside. Put it to work, put it to use, save that money. Because now, not only am I saving that money from the membership fees, I'm also saving that money from having to drive 20 minutes across town to get to that gym. Reduce spending. So I have never been, I am a girly girl, but I don't do like the lashes. And I used to do like the nails. And I was like, okay, it's getting after 2020, everything went up. Everything went up except for the quality. So that was one of the things I said, hey, we're going to start with not going to the nail salon. I'm going to order my polish. Half the time I do it at night. It's all over, it's on the sheets or on my pillow, or it's all over my hands. I said, but we're going to perfect this thing, and we're going to save some money. Because, you used to go in and get your nails painted, 20 some bucks. Now you're paid, if you get the manicure and all, you're paying like $50 for a half done job. So I was like, no, we got to cut some corners here. So, and besides, I am just so excited about all these press-ons that they're coming out with. Every time I see these ladies with these press-ons, I just get super excited. So, yeah, that's one of the areas there that I was able, to reduce spending. And even going to the grocery store, I was like, okay, I don't need all these snacks and stuff. First of all, I need to be concentrating, on eating a little bit healthier and better. Go get some vegetables instead of going to the aisle where you got Oreos that used to be $2.99 a pack. Now, I don't know if anybody has purchased Oreos lately. Now, my grandson loves them, and I told him that we might have to consider eating another cookie because just even a pack of Oreos, now you're paying like $5. And Lord forbid if you go in and buy some chips. First, you're getting a whole bag of air, and you're paying about, I think it's like $5.99 or $4.99 just for a bag of air, half a bag of chips and the rest air. So I had to just make those conscious decisions on when I go to the grocery store, I got to do better. And I need to be watching the flyers to see who has what on sale. And I know you're probably saying, oh, that takes too much time or whatever, but no, no. When you get intentional and you get really serious about having to save, having to budget your finances and having to save money, you do whatever you need to do. And that has really helped me a lot. And I usually do my grocery on Saturday because what that means, I might have to go to more than one grocery store to get what I need. And also, I live in Moore County, which is near Southern Pines, Pinehurst. My family lives in Monroe, right out from Charlotte. I don't visit them as much as I used to. I used to love every weekend going to see my grandbabies and my granddogs, right? Well, now with gas the way it is, that's one expense right there I had to just cut back on. I said, okay, we got to reduce spending here because if not, I'm going to find myself having a whole salary geared to just, fuel itself. So and sometimes it's things, well, most of the time it's things that we don't want to, and it's hard to let go of or do. But again, I cannot stress how important and how intentional you have to be when it's something that you're going to, whenever it comes to setting goals and sticking to your budgets. Okay. Um, Shop for better services or shop for services. Right now, I'm online daily. I'm looking for better insurance rates for my home and my vehicle. Like I said, insurance premiums have just gone sky high. So I'm having to put in the work. I'm not going to sit and wait for my agent to call me and say, hey, I found this. I found this deal for you. No, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to take 30 minutes out of my day or an evening, and I'm going to get online and I'm going to shop for those, those better rates. Get those quotes out there and shop for better rates. It takes time. It takes time and effort, but it can be done. Um, Think about a new job. Now, this is not always feasible for everyone. I have struggled with this for a long time. I've been on my job for 29 years. I've been at First Bank for 29 years. And I was like, God, do I really want to go get a new job? Now banking is it's my life, it's my heart. What else do I want to do? I live in the country. There's not a lot around here. That means I would have to move. That's another expense. And I was like, nope, nope, it's just not going to work for me. Some people, they don't have a problem finding a new job, that pays more money. But regardless to where you work at, how much money you make, the principle remains the same. You still got to learn how to plan financially and budget, come up with the action plans on how you're going to stick to those plans to make it work for you and your family. My grandkids told me, they was like, Nana, I wish we were rich. I said, well, guess what? Rich people have financial goals and budgets as well. I said, the only difference, they can just pay somebody to do theirs, where I can't. I have to use resources, and there are plenty out there, but you just have to make it work. But yeah, when we think about new jobs and things like that, child care could be an issue with that. It could be transportation, it could be the education or experience, or, even like weekend hours. Some of these jobs, they might be paying more, like, your third shift jobs or your weekend jobs, but who wants to be gone from your family like that? So, yeah, so a new job is that's just not always the answer. But whenever the opportunity presents itself, where you can go in and get a better paying job and it's doing something, most importantly, that you like doing or that you want to do, that makes a world of difference. But at the end of the day, you still got a budget. Consider freelance or gig work. Now, look, this one, this one is not me, okay? When I think about freelance or gig work, I think about content creating, right? Now, I don't know how many, we have on here that really like social media, but now that's the thing. Everybody's doing content um on social media. And they're getting some nice payouts on, their content creating, but that wasn't me. But what I did have to do, the majority of me being a single parent, head of my household, I did have to pick up a second job, right? So I had my own cleaning service. I a few days during the week, on the weekend, I clean offices, I clean homes. And that's how I was able to supplement the shortfall from my base income, to have what we can, even to buy some of the necessities. It's not that I was trying to buy things that I want. I was still trying to make ends meet for things that we need, not just want, but we need. But in the long run, I'm so grateful for that because it did provide me an opportunity, to get ahead and to have a little bit of a cushion and a savings. Not a lot of money, but just a little bit, right? But yeah, so freelance gig work. Um, Now, not only are they doing content creating, you have a lot of people, people that are out there doing like the Uber Eats, the Uber, the Lyft, or doing like the holidays. You see a lot of these little contract jobs for like FedEx and UPS, delivery services of that nature. So there are things out here that your primary 9 to 5 just don't cut, right? And again, you just don't want to just jump up and leave your job, especially to go somewhere else that might pay more, but that you're going to be miserable. So, but that was one of the things with me. I was like, I love my job. I love who I'm working with. I don't make as much money, but if I go to work over here, that means I'm miserable. Don't want to be there. Got to work longer hours, and then I'm working on the weekend, where my weekends is for me and my family, and at least my evening time. And then on Sundays, I love going to church, so that didn't work for me. But my little house cleaning gig, it did. It was enough to give us that little jump start for what we needed as far as our savings. So okay, so Marta's debts. Let's take a minute and let's look at some credit cards. We talk about debts. I'm real heavy on debt management, right? So we're going to talk about some debt management strategies, but for now, let's look at Martha's debts right quick. So she has, the 2 credit cards and a student loan. I have a student loan. I know Martha's pain, so I am sick of it. I'm just hoping one morning I get up and it's gone away. So we look at the balances on her debts, and then we're going to talk about, okay, so how can we help Marta? How can we help ourselves, get rid of these debts? So there are two strategies that we use heavily, within the banking world, and they're called the avalanche method and the snowball method. I don't know if some of you are very familiar with those, but these are two methods that you can apply, if you have a lot of unsecured debt that you're trying to pay down, that might help your situation. So when we talk about the avalanche method, just think of a mountain where snow is falling down, right? So your avalanche method, it's going to be where you're going to take your credit cards from the highest interest rate to the lowest. So we're not looking at balances. we're going to look at the credit cards or the debts that's got the highest interest rate. Where for Marta, that's going to be the one that's 23%. It's only $400, but that's 23%. So why don't we go ahead and just start knocking that one out? Because only $400, that's paid to zero balance. You're saving tons of money because the interest on that $400 is 23%. And not only that, you're paying it off. So now your credit score is looking even better because you got some payoffs on there. So you just pay it in the order of highest to lowest. So she's going to pay off her $400 credit card first, her $300. Now she's got money freed up. Not only can she save some, but she can also allocate more of that money towards a student loan and pay it off early. The interest is only 12%. So as she begin to pay more money down on that, she's going to be able to see that balance come down a lot sooner than just paying the minimum payment. The snowball method is a little bit different. You're going to go with the highest balance. So your highest balance is your you start with the lowest balance. Your lowest balance is your $300 credit card. We're not paying attention to the interest rates. We're just looking at the credit card. So if you want to start paying on the smaller one first, if you want to pay them down in that order, that's fine too. It's whatever you choose to do. The main thing here is just make sure that you have some type of strategy. Some type of strategy is better than no strategy at all, right? Because at the end of the day, the end goal is to get all of this paid off so you can have more money in your savings. Setting financial goals. We have 3 types of goals. We have short-term, medium, and long. So short-term things like car repairs, maintenance tires, eyeglasses. Every year, our grandkids go back to school. We have to buy school clothes, summer activities. We might want to send them to a camp and we might have to pay something. So those are your short-term goals. Your medium-term goals are like home repairs, upgrades and stuff to your home. And I don't know how many out there are homeowners, but trust and believe there's going to be something happen in a home that requires attention and money. Okay? Whether it's a new roof on the house, or whether you got to get some doors, some windows, something is going to happen at some point in time where you're going to have to set goals in order just to have that extra amount of money to go towards those. And you don't have to borrow as much if you have to borrow at all or use a credit card at all. Long-term goals. How many is wanting to purchase a home? That's your long-term goal. College funds for your kids or your grandkids, or even retiring early. That's a long-term goal. That's like my number one long-term goal. I've been in my house for years. I'm happy and content. I have no intentions of buying a new home. So now my goal is finish paying my student loan and to also retire early. Don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm working hard towards it. So, and I have to be transparent. I'll be very honest when I do my workshops. Your medium and your long-term goals, they can be challenging because now inflation, everything is so inflated and it's the salaries are not keeping up. They're not aligning with the cost, the inflation over just the last few years. So it's a little bit harder. It can be done. It's attainable, but it's just a little bit harder. So, it just depends on how bad you want it. Is how you're going to go get it and how consistent you're going to stay with it going to get it. So setting your own financial goals, as I said again, you can use like a demonstration from this handout, or always tell people the internet has so many resources out there. And not even resources. Go to your bank. Go to your credit union. Go to your even a lot of your churches or community centers have resources. I mean, the home buyers program, this is great that they're offering this resource at no cost. So there are resources out there, just find one. That's the most important thing, finding one and sticking to it. Okay. And also, you look at places like Amazon, and sometimes you can even walk in Walmart or the dollar store. I've even seen them in the Dollar Tree before. You have these planners. Some people might not want to do, the internet or not great with electronics, but you have these planners. And for me, I'm so old school. I like to see it and touch it and feel it and write it. So that works best for me. Write those things down and have them at hand so you can easily see. And that also helps too when you see things and it's right there in front of you. I mean, it's just really a sense of like, hey, I'm doing this. You get to see those numbers increase. So creating your own budget. I don't know if everyone has ever heard of the 50-30-20 rule. There are two things here, the 50-30-20 rule or the categories method. So the 50-30-20 rule is if you want to, if you want to kind of like, as I say, in three separate buckets, I'm going to say, okay, my bucket number one is going to be most of your needs, right? That's your 50%. So that's your mortgage, that's your insurances, that's your medications, those are your utilities. A rule of thumb is that your income should not be, I'm sorry, 50% of your expenses from that needs bucket, 50% of your income, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get this right. 50% of your income should be at least allocated to that bucket for your needs, which is again your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, your vehicles, and things like that. So just always remember, if you're spending over half of what you make in those categories, you might have to do a little bit of maybe adjusting, readjusting, or just revisiting and say, hey, how can I get this within this means, right? 30%, 30%, no more than 30% of your income should be on wants. Now, for me, I try to keep it way, 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 way under 30%, right? Because I'm more concerned about that 20%, which is my savings. 30% wants, 20% savings or debt payments will put you in a good position. More than 30%, less than 30% of your income going towards wants will put you even in a more better position if you see that 20% up there for your savings grow. So a rule of thumb for me, I like to switch those around. I like to do 20% for my wants and 30% for my savings because I know there are a lot of things out there that I don't need. I want. And I would rather have that extra money going into that bucket over there where my savings, with my savings. Because you know what? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen the next week. We don't know. Whoever thought that my dad would have fallen ill the way he did, and he would have been forced to retire. And then we would, if he would have applied this rule in our household growing up as a kid, then we wouldn't have had, the struggle as bad as we did. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Then we talk about the categories method, right? So this categories method really works well because now you getting to see, you getting to break everything down. It's real clear. So it's very clear and precise, and you get to break stuff down and say, hey, it has to equal out to 100% because that's your income. All your expense, not all your expenses, but your income is 100%. So that's your starting mark, right? So let's break it down and say, hey, I'm gonna only allocate 10% to my savings. So now let's work backwards and let's see. We already know the housing is going to be the majority because there's a lot to go with home ownership. It's not just unlocking the door, walking in, cooking dinner, going to bed at night, right? We have our utilities, we have the insurance, we have the maintenance, upkeep. It's something all the time with a home. So do a breakdown to give you a visual, a clear visual of what it is that is consuming your money. And once you do that, you'll be able to determine more, what percentage, what do I need to tweak? Where do I need to make changes? Because it could be that I have 5% in savings, 10% in down and out. Well, that's a problem. First of all, I can cook at home. I need to go to the grocery store and I can cook at home. I'm not saying don't ever go out to eat, but what I'm saying is I may need to cut back on my down and out experiences. So those are just some of the things where the category method, it works great. Again, you get to see what you're doing, where you want your money going, and how much is actually going there. And that's actually what I have always used, and it works great for me. And a lot of times, if you find like these planners, these binders within the stores or Amazon, it'll be the categories method because it is the most popular. So we're not going to talk about Marty's cuts because everybody's cuts are going to be different. It just depends on your situation. So just to sum it up, we still have 7 more minutes, and I would love to get, some questions and takeaways from everyone. But, just to sum it up, just make it a habit of saving. Decide on the amount you want to save each month. Stick to it. That's the goal. You have to be consistent. Stick to it. Put your money in the savings, or what I do is like, say for instance, now is a great time. Here's tax refund time, right? I don't go get things that I have been wanting to get, or I don't have the debt piled up where I'm going to have to take what few dollars I'm getting back to pay off that debt. I can just throw it to the side and I can put it in my savings. And I put it in a savings, not even with First Bank. And they'll probably kill me if they hear me say this, but it's not even with First Bank. Because, and why do I do that? Because I want it unseen, untouched. Make it hard for me to get to. So therefore, I'm not where I can draw money out every day. So that's why I say that. But it's just whatever, if you have that willpower, that's fine. But it's just been, it has worked so great for so long that that's just what I do. Use the automatic savings if you want to, have it coming out your check where you don't touch it. And this is the thing, you can start off with small amounts. You might look and say, $10, man, that's not even worth to run into a savings. Trust me, as it adds up, as those $10 accumulate, and then you getting a little bit of interest off of it over a year or two, you'll be happy. You'll be surprised at what happens. Limit spending, spending less, make your savings goal easier. So try to cut back as little as you can. We went back through and we talked about the needs versus the wants. When you limit those wants and make sure that those needs are taken care of, you're going to see a big difference in how that savings bucket is going to look. That savings balance is going to look and grow. So remember, there are a lot of strategies for budgeting. There's no one fit for all. It's just whatever, your circumstances are in your household. But the most important thing is that you get one and you stick to it, right? So, and when approaching your debt repayment, consider the avalanche method, snowball method, or whatever you may come up with. The snowball method works great. And speak to someone you trust, your family member, your friend, your financial advisor, additional support. I think it's just great that, the Home Buyers Club has opened up and offered this resource for you all. It is absolutely wonderful because before I went to the bank, I don't remember any kind of services like that. As a matter of fact, even after I was employed with the bank, I still don't remember, those services just, freely being offered. Now we do have more of a selection of those things for our customers. So when you walk into your bank, when you walk into your credit union or whatever that may be, sometimes there are like personal bankers there, or, just tell them what you need. So they should be able to help you. Okay. So I'm sorry, that was a lot to cram in within an hour, but I just appreciate you all just giving me the time to share, like my experience as growing up, as not growing up, but the adulting. I call it adulting as a single, head of household. But those are some of the things that really helped me along my way. And I can say I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm a lot closer than where I used to be. So hopefully there's something that I've said and shared today that would help you all along the way.